Hey folks, this video is sponsored by Revopoint and their new POP 3 Plus 3D scanner, which I'll be using for today's project. There's a link in the description for more info on that. I have been busy lately working on creature effects for a big movie. If you didn't know, that's my day job. I do animatronics, creatures, prosthetic makeup, specialty costumes like super suits, puppets, and specialty props for film and TV. And yes, you've probably seen some movies that I've worked on. So I can't talk about what I'm working on right now, but I did recently finish this original mask design. I call him the goat guy, and I finished this first copy off as sort of a devil character, but I'm gonna do something with that. Now, one thing I like to do whenever I sculpt a new character is to 3D scan it, both to archive the artwork and also to be able to reproduce it in other forms. So with a couple of my other original masks, Glob and the Ghost Pirate, I 3D scanned those and turned them into vacuform masks like old school costumes would come with. And actually, the Ghost Pirate one was one of my very first 3D scanning videos, and I'll put a link so you can go watch that if you want to see that process and probably how my process has evolved in this one, because I'm going to be doing the same thing with the goat guy. I'm going to 3D scan it, modify that scan to make a 3D printed mold, which is called a buck for vacuum forming, and then I'm going to heat up some plastic on the vacuum former and suck it down to form a perfect copy of that sculpture and make one of these cool little vacuum form masks. I'm using the POP 3 Plus, which Revopoint very kindly sent me for this video. It's very similar to the POP 3, which came out about a year ago in both the design and the basic features. It's designed for scanning medium-sized objects, which would be around the size of a human head. The difference is that the POP 3 Plus has a new updated calibration board, improved accuracy, and a couple new software features called optical zoom and global marker tracking. The original POP 3 became my go-to 3D scanner over the last year. I found it to be very reliable for scanning most things. It's not perfect for everything, but if I had to choose one scanner that would be the most versatile for all the different types of things I do, that would probably be it. So I'm excited to see how this improved version performs. I'm giving this scanner a bit of a challenge by scanning the painted mask because the darker paint areas and the high gloss on the eyes and teeth are not ideal for scanning. But we're going to go for it and also scan this in color to see how it does. I find that scanning on the turntable provides the scanner with the best chance of success. I did a pass over everything, then paused and went back to get a better capture on the challenging areas. Could you do that as a separate scan and merge them together? Yes, but I find this to be easier. Then I go through the steps to turn that scan data into a 3D model. What the original scan is capturing is a point cloud, which is just a series of dots in 3D space. So we have to fuse those together, and from there you have a lot of options for different processing settings, but I find that just running an isolation, which deletes any stray points, and then going straight to meshing at the highest level tends to give a really good result. And that is my standard processing for most scans. Now, I have to interject from the future here and say that this is not the highest quality scan that this scanner can produce. I figured it out later, and I will show you what I mean when we get to that point. I took that scan into ZBrush and modified it for vacuum forming. I want to scale it down a little bit to fit on my vacuum former, and reduce the depth somewhat to fit the look of a vacuform mask more. I also had to do a little bit of a stretch and pull with the move tool to squish some of the features in just to make that vacuform work better as a shape. I also need to draft out the undercut so the plastic doesn't get stuck on the mold. So I use the mask by draft feature and then stretch out the undercuts onto a duplicate copy of the sculpture. And together that kind of creates this lofted shape where there are no undercuts anymore. When that's done, I'll export that into Chitubox, where I'll generate the slice files for the Frozen Mega 8K V2 3D printer. This is a huge resin 3D printer that was sent to me by Ultimate 3D Printing Store and Frozen. And it is the workhorse of many of the projects that I'm doing these days. I'm very happy with it, and I do highly recommend it if that's the type of thing that you're doing. That's going to take about 17 hours to print, which, by the way, is crazy fast. I use the Akuma Mods speed profile, which you can find, I think, in one of the Facebook groups, and it runs about 20% faster on the Mega V2 than it did even on the original Mega. While we wait, I'm going to try out some of those other new features on the Pop 3 Plus. The main new feature that's interesting to me is the optical zoom. The way they describe it, it uses the optical zoom to capture more surface details at 1.5 and 2 times magnification by focusing the projected structured light and enhancing detail in point clouds by 30%. So let's give that a go. Okay, wow, I should have used this the first time. This is a huge quality upgrade. Wow, so I think what's happening here is that it's focusing all of its 3D powers into a smaller area, and so it's able to pick up a much finer level of detail. There's another new mode called Global Marker Tracking, which allows you to scan an object with markers in 2 passes. Once just to capture the positions of the markers, and then again to capture the surface detail, using those markers as reference. This is meant to produce improved results over standard marker tracking mode. I don't do a lot of marker tracking because it's meant for smooth, featureless objects, and most of what I scan are textured sculptures, but it does work pretty well. When that's done printing, I remove the supports, then wash it with alcohol. I found the easiest thing is to put the print into a tray and drizzle some alcohol over it and scrub it with a large chip brush. Then I post-cure it in the UV curing box I built. I'm also using a vacuum forming machine that I built myself. It takes a 12-inch by 16-inch sheet of plastic, and once that's heated up enough, I just switch on the vacuum, pull down the frame, and suddenly you have a perfect copy of that sculpture in plastic. I made a couple of these so I can try out some paint variations. I like to use spray paint as the base layer for my vacuform masks because there are types that are formulated to bond well to plastic specifically. And then I can use regular acrylic paints on top of that, and they adhere to each other pretty well. I went with a sponged on dry brush look and took it in sort of a fiery orange color scheme. I did some hand-painted details on this one and left the other one a little simpler. I kind of like both versions, actually. Here's how it turned out. Thanks to Revopoint for sponsoring this project and sending along the Pop 3 Plus 3D scanner. There's a link in the description for more info on that, and it is an affiliate link. So if you purchase this scanner or anything else from the Revopoint site, after clicking on that, I get a little bonus, which is much appreciated. But it also lets Revopoint know that you've found this video interesting and useful, and it helps me keep doing them. That's all for now. I appreciate all of you who have subscribed and liked and left comments. I'll be back as soon as I have another project to share.